would be honored if you would join us.
Hello and welcome to another special episode of Film Stories with Simon Brew. I am Simon Brew, as always. That's all you need to know about me. This is, when I say this is a special episode, I mean it's a deviation from the norm. In this particular episode, I'm not going to be talking about specific films and exploring the stories behind them. It's more just offering one or two opportunities, as I've been promising on my Twitter feed for a little while now, and just starting to open, hopefully, a door or two for people who are struggling to make a breakthrough. So this isn't going to be a particularly long podcast, but nonetheless, hopefully you're going to find some stuff in it that may be of use to you. I'm going to start just by playing a clip that's not related to anything else I'm going to talk about.
Every school has a covers band. Every pub has a covers band. Every wedding has a covers band. And every covers band has a middle-aged member who'll never know whether they could have made it in the music industry or not because they never had the balls to write a song for someone else. Rock and roll is a risk. You risk being ridiculed.
But I don't know how to write a song.
Close that door and sit down.
Really?
It's going to be a long night.
I have school in the morning.
This is school.
So then, as one or two of you may know, I'm going through something of a career change at the moment, that I'm moving away from a website that I started 11 and a half years ago, along with some really brilliant people. I'm leaving some really brilliant people behind, but I'm also at the point where I've kind of a bit time for a change moment. I'll spare you the full story, but when I put my notice in at my job, I didn't have anything to go to per se, and I was going through a fairly difficult, unrelated. I was going through a fairly difficult stage, courtesy of a bereavement that I'd had over the summer. And so I started the Film Stories podcast really as an outlet for me. I know that sounds incredibly selfish, but I do just want to be honest about it. That I just wanted to just get back to me in a room talking, writing about film, which is something I just always loved doing. Really loved it. I adore films. I love being able to talk about them, chat about them, and celebrate them. And so this podcast started just when things were getting difficult, and I just wanted to do something that was purely me, really. And then after a couple of weeks, I kind of didn't expect this podcast to do anything. It went into I thought it would go into the ether a little bit, and that would be that. But then that's not quite what happened. So with thanks for the enormous support that lots of you have shown me, I'm kind of in a point now where I want to give something back, and I want to expand what we do. There's a very small but slowly growing team behind the scenes now, but expand what we do with Film Stories. So I just want to tell you a little bit about that and how you can get involved. In the first instance, Film Stories is now more than a podcast. There is a slowly growing YouTube channel, and again, this is a whole new thing to me. I'm indebted there to the expertise and help of a man with very fine facial hair by the name of Dan Cooper, and you can find the YouTube channel at youtube.com/filmstories. Which kind of brings me to now, and I'm at a point where I want to open up opportunities to those who are trying to get their films noticed, and those who are wanting to write about film for the first time and get paid for it and get noticed. So I want to offer some help there as well. So there's three things then that I want to talk you through. Details still a little bit vague at the moment, but details will follow. But just if I take things in turn, this one first to filmmakers, to independent filmmakers who've completed a feature and I think for the time being it will be feature rather than short films, who are struggling to get it noticed, who they may or may not have distribution. And ideally that their project is British. I'm going to centre the efforts primarily in the first instance around British films. And what I'm opening up here is an invitation to submit your film. And by some method, via the slowly growing Film Stories empire, if your film is good, or if your film is interesting, if there's something to it, the aim really, the aim we're looking for is to shine a light on it, to bring it to people's attention, to talk about your movie. Now, there's a few necessary caveats to all of this. If 200 people suddenly send in their films, let me not kid you into thinking that this is a very small enterprise that I'm running here. And actually, the physical act of watching all of those films is a huge uphill. A huge uphill battle. One of the founding principles I'm working with on anything I'm doing with Film Stories is everybody gets paid. Not going to get paid much because I've not got much money. In fact, I've barely got any money, leaving my job, etc., etc. But conversely, I don't expect anybody to work for free, and that includes watching films. I don't expect film reviewers to watch a film on spec. So, just to be clear, it is film lovers I'm interested in, so it's not a case of I'm paying someone because otherwise they won't watch a film. I believe that their work has merit and deserves some value, some reward for it. So, the act of watching the film might sound like fairly straightforward. If suddenly get deluged with an awful lot of movies, it's just going to have to be a queue. It could take days, weeks, months to clear. All I can tell you is films will get watched. Now, what I can also tell you is not every film is going to get covered. One thing I don't want to do is use the Film Stories platform to kick out really at small independent projects, at films people have made at home or whatever. And so the ones that we'll talk about, and it will be a small minority of them, under 5%, I would imagine, is the guess from the top of my head. But what I want to do is we will go through those films. We will find the 4 or 5%, and those are the ones we'll talk about. If we're not talking about your film and you've sent it in, I don't quite know how to approach this because, I have to weigh up the fact that there aren't many of us. I'd rather be upfront about this. There aren't many of us, and getting into conversations about why or not a film is going to be included is going to be tricky and lengthy and arduous and administratively driven, and it's all just going to take time. So I don't. One of the curses of sending stuff out is very often you get ignored, and I'm keen for that not to happen as well. But I'm also very aware that it's a labour of love sometimes making a film, and it's quite difficult just to send a note, which is all I'd be able to do sometimes, really, saying we're just not going to be covering it, because you'll read a million things into that potentially, and all ultimately it will mean is there's a finite amount we can do. We're just going to do it with other projects. It's no slight or otherwise on your film. We might not have liked it, might have hated it, might have really liked it, but there was something else that just eclipsed it. I don't know. So let me be upfront about all of that. Also, just for practicality's sake, please don't send physical discs. I am a physical disc person as a rule. Love physical discs. But in this instance, please send links. Please send us a viewing link. Password protected is fine, of course, but don't forget to include the password. And send that through. Send that through to simon@filmstories.co.uk. So send those links, send links to completed features. If your film is available for purchase anywhere, advise us of that as well. If you can just give us a little bit of background, tell us what the distribution status is. Does it just live on a hard drive on your computer and you can't get word of it out there? I would say, if you know in your heart of heart, this is a terrible thing to say to creative people, so I'm just going to kind of gently phrase it if I can. But I know sometimes I've written something and it's not, it's It's not great. It's not me at my best, and that's the kind of stuff I'm reluctant to send out. If you send the stuff you're really proud of, send the things that you're really desperate to get some kind of exposure for, because I will be looking to recruit a small bunch of people. I'm coming to this soon to recruit a small bunch of people to watch films, to try and find gems, to try and find nuggets, try and find something really good. And if in your heart of hearts you've made the worst horror film on planet Earth, for instance, although there's some competition there, I'd be grateful if you could spare it us. If you think it's got something to say, if you've got a pulse, if it's wildly entertaining, whatever, if there's something to it, that's fine. Not looking to find the next masterpiece, although that would be great. Just looking for something with a pulse, something interesting, something to hook into. And I don't care how mainstream or non-mainstream it is, entirely up to you. In that sense, it's a very broad church. That offer to filmmakers is open now. Simon@filmstories.co.uk. Let me move on then to people who want to write about film who can't catch a break. One of the things I'm very aware of is that the barriers to getting your work published and out there have never been lower, in my view. I mean, I've seen the rise of I've come from magazines. I've seen the rise of the internet. I've seen now that anyone can set up a blog and get their work out there. It's great. The barriers to getting noticed, I think, are tremendously high. The barriers to getting paid for your work, for written work, have never been higher, in my view. I think if you're a freelance writer, or if you're looking to review or write features or whatever, I think it's harder than ever to get a first paid piece of work. Here then is the offer that I'm making to I sound like a politician. Shall I start again? Here then is what I want to do for people who are looking to catch a break. I'm experimenting with a possible print version of Film Stories, of which I will talk more in due course. Part and parcel of what I want to do with that is to give one or two people at a time their first paid writing work. It's not going to be paid much. £30 is the rate I'm going for at the moment, unless I can get more investment and scale it up. And it's one of those that if more and more money comes in, the rate will scale up. It's more the fact at this stage everything I'm doing is self-funded, and I'm not taking any income from any of this. This is, can I build something interesting that would help new writers, that would help filmmakers looking for exposure. And there's a lot more to it if I can flesh it all out, but I'm still pretty much in the early stages of it. So a few things on this. Firstly, there's no guarantee of commission number 2. All I'm looking to do at this stage, because there's only so much I can do, and I think this is something I can do well, is offer a break to one or two people at a time. And it will be a case of, my aim is to give you your first paid writing work. That's not to say I'm not accepting ideas, pitches, thoughts from people who have been paid, who have existing work. I would say if you've got regular gigs in monthly magazines or something, and you're just looking to bolster a freelance portfolio, please don't come to me in the nicest sense, because I'm just trying to do something a little bit different and just hold the ladder up for a few people. And so I want you to pitch me stuff. I want you to pitch me relatively mainstream film stuff. I want you to tell me a bit about you. I want you to tell me if you want to write features, if you want to write reviews, what you're interested in. And I mean, just to give you a flavour of what I'm not interested in, I like things to read that have got a pulse, that have got clearly authored by an individual. I like. I've got no intention of ever printing anything along the lines of 7 reasons why so and so sucks or something like that. If you've got a hot take on, Batman versus Superman, that's great. I think comic book movies are covered widely elsewhere. That's all I'd say. So it's going to have to be a very, very hot take. If, however, you want to talk about a film no one else wants to talk about, what it means to you, how did it affect you? What do you think of the current cinema environment? How do you find multiplayer? You know, what's your angle on that? What's in your brain that no one else is really talking about? If any of this sounds of interest to you, don't send me a CV. I've not got jobs, and also CVs are the most boring things to ever read on planet Earth. But send me a couple of ideas. Just tell me a little bit about you. Send me a couple of ideas. Tell me if you've had paid work before. If you've got a great idea, I'm going to find a way to pursue it one way or another. But please be honest with me about your position, about what experience you've had, what payment you've had. I don't need to know the amounts, just because, again, I'm trying to do lots of things with this project, and if you're honest with me, it helps me enormously. The same email address, simon@filmstories.co.uk. That mailbox is open now for pitches, for ideas. Again, let me tell you up front, if I get swamped with hundreds of ideas, which I may do, I may not, I may get 2. Who knows? The chances of me being able to reply to them all are just slim. I am just one balding man in a room, and that is it. I mean, I much as though I'd like you to think I'm living in some deep underground base with lots of minions running around, it's one person in a room, and I'm trying to get an awful lot done. And I know that makes me sound a bit up myself, but I'm just trying to be honest with you. Because I think that's fair. I think writers deserve honesty. So I'm a bit old-fashioned about stuff like that. So that mailbox is open now. So that is an opportunity, and let's see where it goes from there. And I will keep you updated on it. There is a third thing which is not related to film stories that I just briefly want to touch on, and this is something I'm looking to get going before the end of the year. I'm looking to crowdfund a new magazine called Kids Asterisk. It makes more sense when it's written down than when you see it, than when some idiot says it into a microphone, albeit a grownly expensive microphone. And Kids Asterisk, the asterisk basically is relates to who are under 16, who are facing some kind of physical stroke, non-physical disability, or just feel a little bit different, a little bit off, that something's not right. And I want to create a magazine for under 16s who find themselves in that bracket, who want to tell their stories, who want to talk about stuff, who want a magazine that is just for them. Now, a few things on it. There's some very obvious safeguarding stuff to be clear. At first, I won't be running. I need first name, location, and what the author in question is up against. And I'm phrasing this as delicately as possible. And how that's presented in the ultimate magazine will be very carefully done. But one of the things I want this magazine to do is to show parents of kids parents of kids who are in who are in the boat, just what their kids can do. I mean, it can be quite. It can be quite eye-opening when you first hear diagnoses and stuff like that. And I just want to prove to parents as well as to kids that the palette of things you can do is broad and huge and brilliant and open. But for kids also, I basically, in a weird way, want to give them a job. I want to pay them to write this magazine. And again, the same ethos, everybody gets paid. Nobody's going to get paid an awful lot, but everybody's going to get paid. So I've spoken to one or two people about this magazine, and I've had a brilliant 9-year-old who's written a piece already because he wants to explain to his friends what autism is and what living with autism is. And he can't get that across because no one will talk to him about it. So he's written an article on it, and it's just brilliant. And to be able to publish that and put that out into the world is great. Conversely, if there's a 12-year-old out there who just wants to talk about Fortnite, I don't mind. It's got to be the magazine primarily penned by the people it's intended for. That magazine I'm in the early stages of development now, and I'm aiming to get it out in the next 3-4 months really, and it's one of those where I'll need all the help I can get, but then I'm going to be asking for quite a lot of help anyway, so I'll be fairly I'm so sorry everything's beeping, but I'm in a flow now. I just want to get all this out, so please forgive me. I don't have extensive post-production facilities. If any of that magazine sounds of interest to you, to people you know, in any shape or form, then please, there's a Facebook group I've just started called facebook.com/kids*. But you can use the simon@filmstories.co.uk address just for the minute while I'm setting other bits and bobs up. But it's just, if you think the idea is rubbish, tell me it's rubbish, because I want this to be right. And if I'm missing the mark by a mile, I'm missing the mark by a mile, and I'd rather correct it now. But, if any of this stuff is of interest, if any of it is just sparking your brain somewhere, just please do get in touch. Please forgive the fact that everything continues to beep. And the worst I'm going to do is give this a try and take a gamble and try stuff, and let's see if it works. And hopefully, just give a number of you out there the kind of break that people gave me once upon a time. And that's it. I will have more details in due course. I may suddenly cry and decide to bottle the whole lot and just run off into the ether, but I don't think so. Your questions, ideas, thoughts, whatever, simon@filmstories.co.uk, or you can get me on Twitter @SimonBrew. And with that, I'm just going to wrap this episode up, and your regular film stories will be back with a new episode, hopefully if all goes to plan, next week. Thanks as always for listening, and take care. Bye-bye.